Howdy. So today I'm going to talk about my weekend, my last weekend, when I went to Washington, D.C. for something that was called the Blogging While Brown Conference. In essence, it was a conference of, well, people of color to get together and talk about blogging. And I'm going to tell, this in kind of a story form, which means I'm going to cover the entire weekend. So some of it is outside of the conference and some of it is in the conference. And just give a brief synopsis on my thoughts overall about the thing. I'm also writing a blog post, which I will include here at some point. The thing is, the video is going to go live before the blog post, so it's not going to let me attach the link until the blog post is actually live. But I am going to include the link, which is pretty much now, to the post that I wrote before I left. And that's just going to give you a little insight into what my mind was, or where my mind was, and why I really wanted to go to this conference. And I'm not going to get into that right now. If you want to, you can track the link back to that blog post and see what I had to say. So anyway, I had to leave last Friday, and I left last Friday afternoon from Syracuse. And the thing is, my wife was going to be leaving town on actually Sunday, that it turned out to be Saturday, for her assignment out of town. And my friend Kelvin, who usually drives me to the airport and picks me up, was leaving town Sunday to go to his own conference here still in New York State. So I had to leave my car at the airport, and we'll come back to that. But I had to leave my car at the airport. I go in, I check my bag, I've got my ticket. Everything went well from Syracuse. The plane was on time. I got on first class. Hey, when you got it, you got it. And for once, direct flight, Syracuse to Washington, D.C. Sitting in first class wasn't everything I thought it was going to be, because I had this guy next to me who started talking to me before the flight even took off, and he talked to me the entire time down there. And this was not mainly us talking back and forth to each other. He probably talked about 90% of the time. And, if you have a conversation going about things, then that's kind of enjoyable sometimes. But when you're just listening to what someone else has to say, okay, some of the stories were kind of funny, but, it kind of took a little bit away. I couldn't really look away. I couldn't look out the window. I did have a couple of apple juices because I don't drink, liquor or anything like that. But, that was that. So I get down to the airport, Reagan International Airport. Anyway, and now it's time to go to baggage claim. So I go to baggage claim, you hear the noise, and all the bags go around, and then they stop. And I said, wait, is that it? Is that all the bags? The guy said, yes, where's my bag? He said, well, I don't know, it may be around here somewhere. I'm thinking, what the devil does that mean? What it means is that just because they put all the bags from one plane on one carousel doesn't mean they put all the bags on one carousel. So I had to go walking up, and I'm getting ready to walk to the office, and I get 3 carousels up, and I notice there's my bag. I don't know how that happens, but at least I had my bag, so that was good. So I go out and I catch a cab. The reason I catch a cab was actually is twofold. One, the last time I was in Washington, D.C., I waited over an hour for the shuttle so it wouldn't cost me anything to get to my hotel. And I decided I wasn't going to do that again. And of course, it turned out that these folks didn't have a shuttle anyway. So I get the ride from this guy in Washington, D.C. at about 4:30 in the afternoon. No one wants to drive in Washington, D.C. at that time, so it was just a mess. But eventually I got there. Turns out my hotel was only 3.5 minutes from the airport. That it took 25 minutes. At least it turns out that in Washington, D.C., when the car's not moving, they're not charging you. Trust me, that doesn't happen everywhere I go. And it's a different thing because this hotel, which was a Hampton Inn, part of the Hilton brand, was basically like this doorway on this street. Now, once you got inside, it was really nice, but it was just the oddest thing. Anyway, I checked in, and I decided I'm going to walk over to see where the conference is, because the conference was in this other place and I was staying in a different hotel than what they recommended. And I said, this is only supposedly a 10-minute walk. Once I figured it out, it was less than 10 minutes. But initially, I just had to follow the GPS on the phone to get me there. And also, there was supposed to be a get-together at 6 o'clock. So I figured, you know what? I can go over. My ticket says I can check in at 5:30, so I'll check in. That way, I can show up a little bit later on Saturday morning before the thing begins. Well, it turned out that our conference was being held at the Marvin Center of George Washington University. Now, this is also freaking to me because it's the first university I've ever been to that's basically on a city street. So the university's on a city street. They have a hospital. It's on a city street. The dorms, which I'm assuming are the dorms, are basically on the city streets. Everything was like a city street. I'm used to colleges kind of being off on their own, but this one wasn't. And that kind of freaked me out a little bit as well. It also freaked me out that there was no notice of the conference. I said, well, wait a minute. I know the conference is tomorrow, but there should be a notice somewhere. And I asked a few people in the building about it, and nobody knew anything about it. My mind says, uh-oh, this ain't going to be good. Then I realized, okay, you know what? Everyone else is staying at this hotel that they recommended. I'll walk over there. So I walk over there, and ain't nobody there. And there's no signs up or anything. I said, well, okay, I guess that I'm kind of on my own for now. So I walked back to my hotel. Now, on this particular trip, I didn't bring my laptop because I just thought it would be too much stuff to keep up with for just a couple of days. But I did bring my Nook. So I pop on the Nook and go to the Facebook page. And then I see other people asking, hey, where is this event? Where are we supposed to be? And then finally around like 6:15, they put up a notice saying that it's in some room over at the hotel that everyone else was staying at. And so I wrote and said, so I guess that means that there's no registration tonight. And they wrote back and said, yes, there's no registration. Fine. So now I'm waiting for my cousin. Turns out my cousin Ivy, my mother's cousin, actually she's a couple years older than me, so I guess it's closer to my cousin, lives in Washington, D.C., and we had talked on Facebook, and she said she was going to come and take me out to dinner. I said, okay, that works out fine. Let's go out to dinner. And then I was going to meet her daughters. And I've only met Ivy one time, but she's, a great woman, so I said, okay, I get to meet her a second time. So I'm starving because I had eaten, McDonald's McGriddle, sausage and egg McGriddle, at basically 8 o'clock in the morning. And I hadn't eaten again, and now it's 8 o'clock at night. And so she finally calls and says, okay, I'm on my way, coming to get you. And I'm like, oh, dang, I should have gotten a Snickers. But I didn't. So she picks me up, and she's driving this Mercedes-Benz. And I'm thinking, wow, look at this car. Jeez. And she works for the government. She's driving this car. Woo. And she drives. Okay, you know what? You start to find out that when you're the rider, sometimes it feels that people are driving really fast when they're not driving as fast as you think. Then again, we weren't on a highway. If I was on a highway and she was doing 65, I probably wouldn't notice it. If the windows had been closed, then I really wouldn't have noticed it. But she says, oh, no, I've never, used the air conditioning. My windows are always open if I got to stay cool down. Well, no, my windows are never open. So that was a little funny. And we end up in something that was called the National Harbor that I never even knew existed in Washington, D.C. along the, I don't know what river it is. I'm not even going to try to guess what it is. One of these years I may look it up. I may even put it up here as a window. So anyhow, we get there and we walk to this restaurant called the Redstone where her daughters are. And I meet the daughters and they're all attractive young ladies. And so we finally get a table and we sit down and I'm looking at the prices and I'm thinking, my goodness, these are like Ruth Chris prices. But I'm ready to dig into it. And then I said, you know what, no, I don't want to spend all this money on the Friday night. So I ordered a hamburger and I ordered a bowl of what they call it, shrimp and sweet corn chowder. And I've had shrimp and corn chowder here. So I said, well, okay, this ought to be good. So they bring me that as an appetizer and it tasted wonderful. Oh my God, was that wonderful. Turns out it was a good thing that was wonderful because I had ordered a hamburger medium well. Because, sometimes you order a hamburger out and it's well done and it's real crispy and whatever. And it was totally red. It was all mushy in the middle. So the guy comes by and I said, I can't eat this. It's all mushy. Says, well, it looks like you've ate a bunch of it. I said, no, I just didn't order it with any bread. I've had a bite. I can't eat this. So he says, want us to make you another burger. And I'm thinking, well, that's just going to be a waste of time because you're going to make it the exact same way. Turns out I was right because two of the young ladies I was with had ordered their steaks, their prime rib or filet mignon, one or the other, medium well. And both of theirs weren't cooked in the middle. And the guy takes theirs back. Now, I'm not a professional cook, but I've eaten out a lot. And one of the things I know is that if you have a very thick piece of meat and you usually ask for something medium well or well done, what they usually do is they butterfly it so that then they can make sure it cooks in the middle. Well, this guy comes and takes theirs back, and they brought it back and it looked the exact same. And they also decided, oh, you know what, we're just going to take this home. We're not going to do this again. I'm thinking, what kind of idiots do you have that didn't cut it and butterfly it? That's that. So anyhow, now I want ice cream, but it turns out the only ice cream place they had was Ben & Jerry's. I got Ben & Jerry's at home, so I didn't want to get anything like that. So that's that. We walk around a little bit. I can look at a little bit of the National Harbor, what they had there. And then she drives me back to the hotel, and that's Friday night. Now, it's Saturday morning. So now it's Saturday morning, and I walk over, and I see the registration booth, and everybody's got smiles on their faces, and we're ready to go. We're going to conference. And I got to tell you the truth. The conference was nice. The very first day, the very first speaker that we had, and you know what? I've got to look at the book because I don't remember everybody's name. But the lady who started it, her name was Gina McCauley, and basically she's the one who put together the conference. And she's the one who thought of the conference years ago. And so, here you go. You're talking to the person who actually put the conference together. And from what I gathered, the conferences used to have a lot more people than what showed up for this one. We may have had somewhere eventually between 125 and 175 people. That's because some people came on Saturday but couldn't come on Sunday, and some people couldn't make it Saturday and came on Sunday. So I think you had some kind of numbers like that. And I guess if you ask me, the reason why you didn't have as many people is because there were no real big names this time. I've looked at some of the roster of presenters from previous conferences, and some of those people I knew who they were. This year, I didn't know a single person who was presenting. As a matter of fact, even though the people at the conference didn't know, the person who was at the conference who was the most accomplished overall is my friend Yasmin. And she's most accomplished because she's had some books that she's published that have won awards, and she's made movies. And she used to run a hip-hop magazine for about 6 or 7 years. And so she's met a lot of famous people. So she's the most accomplished person in the room, and none of them knew who she was. Now, no one knew who I was. And I thought that was strange because I've been blogging for 11 years. And I know tons of people, and a lot of, kind of well-known blogging people. But none of those people knew who I was. Then again, I didn't know who any of them were. So, like I said, it was a little different. When I looked at previous conferences, I saw people who I knew. So if I had showed up with them, they'd, hey, Mitch, how you doing? Didn't happen. And I got to tell you, that's a little different. Not that I have this big ego or anything, but I go to my healthcare conferences. When I used to go to my healthcare conferences, I can't see me going to another one anymore. But even before, I started writing, or when I was independent, or started writing in blogs anyway, people knew who I was at conferences because they had read magazines that I'd written articles in. And they always had put up my pictures. So I'm not used to being to a conference where no one knows who I am. So basically, I kind of kept in the distance. I sat back. I didn't say almost anything to anyone about how much I blog. I didn't really talk all that much about the, channels that I have on YouTube. I just basically listened. And what I heard were a lot of people who talked about how they have been able to generate some kind of income by doing all these different things, but not necessarily about what I was thinking it was going to be, which was really about blogging. I guess I went in with an idea that a blogging conference would talk about the process of blogging, how often you should write, how long you should write, discussions like that. And it was none of that. We didn't really talk about blogging. They talked about podcasting. They talked about live video. They talked about, advertising on Facebook and Pinterest and some of the other things, there's a little different than what I was expecting, yet it was still interesting to hear. And y'all know me, or some of you know me. You know I checked out blogs when I got home and saw rankings and saw how often people, were writing. And, a few of those people wrote pretty regularly, but some of those people hadn't written for the longest time. And it turned out that half the people who showed up to the conference, at least in the beginning of the day on Saturday morning, didn't even have blogs. They were coming to learn more about the process of blogging. I said, wow, really? I wouldn't have paid that kind of money to come to something like that, if I had never blogged. And one lady who I met early on, this was her third conference, and she still hadn't started blogging. I was really stunned by that. I was like, and I asked her, why haven't you started? Well, I want to make sure I do it right, which is one of the things I cover on my blog all the time, where I say, don't overthink this process. Get in there and try it. Do it. This one guy I talked to on Sunday, where he said he hadn't started. I said, this is a recommendation I make to everybody who's thinking about blogging. I said, go home, write 10 articles. If you can write 10 articles, then you can think about blogging. If you can't write 10 articles, and you can take a month if it takes you a month to write 10 articles. But if you can't write 10 articles on your topic, don't start blogging, because you're going to hate it. You're going to hate every single minute of it. So anyway, the first day, like I said, we had the thing where we had some group conversation. Then they broke people out into different groups. And I'm just going to mention a couple of folks who I was kind of impressed by. I mean, the first lady, for instance, her name was Arsha Johnson. And I was impressed by her because she's someone who said that 3 years ago, she hadn't done any blogging whatsoever. And she was, her family was in some financial distress. And they had a conference in Harlem. And she just was able to kind of borrow some money from some folks to go to the conference. And now, homegirl's making about $250K a year. Now, she works a lot. She works hard. She works so hard, she's got her kids working for her. And she doesn't sleep much, which I can identify with. But I'm not regularly making $250K a year. So props to her. She began the thing. And then we had these two ladies who I thought were really entertaining. One was Lucretia Braxton, and the other one was Davida Arnold. And I never could quite figure out if they actually work in the same place. But they both presented at the same time, and they kind of played off each other. And Davida would sometimes get into this singing thing. I don't know how many of y'all have ever been to a conference that's not a music conference and had someone sing. But she was good. And it was entertaining, and I enjoyed that. There were some of the some of the things that I just kind of skipped. For instance, there was a thing talking about mobile, working more with that. Didn't care. I don't do podcasts, so I didn't care. So, I mean, that was kind of the first day. I'm looking to see if anyone else did that. Well, they did something what they called the Black Weblog Awards. And I was somewhat intrigued by that because I wondered, how did they make a determination on who got these awards? No idea. But one of the young ladies I met named Dasha, I can't think of her last name right now, which is a shame. She didn't present, but she won an award for her blog. And she's the cutest thing. She does her own fashions. And so, let's just say she's not the model size. But she makes fashions for women her size. And they look really good. And she models them on there. And she writes about it. And she does other things. So I was glad that she won an award. She's one of the few people I actually got to meet whose name I remember. So there you go. Anyway, that was the first day. And Yasmin and I then decided, okay, we're going to leave a little bit early because she knew I was hungry. Matter of fact, I hadn't eaten a real meal since I'd had that McGriddle. If we count McDonald's, McGriddle is a real meal. So we walked around the corner to a restaurant that I think it was called Bertucci's. And I ordered something called jambalaya fettuccine. That was wonderful. Oh my God, that was wonderful. And then I ordered something, it was a chocolate peanut butter pie that looked like it was going to be really, really creamy. But when I put my fork into it, it wasn't creamy. Now, it turns out that it was just too cold to be creamy. But I only had a couple of bites of that, and my body felt uh-oh, I'm going to have sugar cruising through my body. One, because I'm diabetic, but two, because I hadn't had any real food throughout the day, because lunch, we'll just say that I couldn't even eat lunch. So instead of not eating the lunch, I had one of those double Kit Kat bars. And I had a couple of other dessert things. So I had bad stuff to counter for the fact that, you know, I hadn't eaten anything. Okay, I had maybe a sample of the breakfast that they had in the hotel. Ugh. Sorry, that's just how I felt about it. So anyway, now I've had all this stuff. I walk back to my hotel. I am exhausted. I'm just burnt out. So I said, you know what? Let's just take ourselves a real short nap. And so it was almost 8 o'clock. So I figured it would be like home. I lay down. I'm going to sleep maybe 25, 30 minutes. Next thing I know, it's 10 minutes to 11. I said, oh my God, really? Woo. So I slept that long, got up. Now I can't get back to sleep that early. Doesn't matter because I know I'm not going to be, you know, at the conference really early the next morning. And around 1:15 in the morning, there's this noise that I'm just hearing coming from outside, and it's boom, 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 and whatever. And I'm a kind of a curious guy, so I decide, okay, let's just get dressed. Let's go find out what it is. Bad idea. Bad idea. Nothing happened, but it was tense. Probably 6 or 7 steps after I walked out the hotel, I saw the first homeless person sleeping in the corner. Then I saw 3 or 4 others. And I was walking the wrong way. I realized it. I start walking back. And then I see more. And it's just these homeless people who just find themselves a little nook in a building, corner, you know, like walking by the door. And they just tuck themselves in there and go to sleep. And this is Washington, D.C. I guess they have a lot of homeless, but that, you know, I hadn't seen that since I was in New York City. And I kind of expected to see it in New York City, but it never really thought that I would see it in Washington, D.C. At least not where I was. And so I walk around this corner, and I look up ahead, and it's this dance club. Once again, it's a dance club that's kind of in a building, on a street. And I thought later on, when I was asking people, I said, when did young people all get bigger than me? And I don't mean like heavy. I mean bigger. They were huge. I mean the guys, huge, taller, all mean looking. As a matter of fact, when I used to go out to the dance club, we would be smiling. Oh my God, we're going to go in the dance club. We're going to have a good time. We're going to listen to our disco or our dance music. And we're going to dance all night long. None of these people looked happy. Some of them were already screaming mad stuff and, you know, saying all this filth and garbage and whatever. One couple was walking out, and the lady was really, really drunk. She was really cute too, but she was really, really drunk. And this guy just picks her up and starts carrying her off. And I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be a bad situation. But here's the other thing: there were 6 or 7 cops outside the club. We never had police outside our clubs way back in the day, so you know there was that, and I was really uncomfortable, but you know. I'm me, so I just kept my walking, and I walk around the corner, and I look up ahead, and there's another police officer, and I'm thinking, okay, now of all weird things, I felt a little more comfortable, but just a little bit more, because, you know, y'all know what's going on these days, and I'm thinking, well, he may have thought I came out of the club. Now I'm looking at me and what I'm dressed, and I'm 56 years old, and I'm saying, okay, who am I kidding? He knows I wasn't in that club. But there were some folks who were behind me, who were screaming at each other and yelling and saying stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get caught up in this. Oh, my God, I'm going to get caught up in this. And I did. And I turned another corner, walked back to my hotel, went back upstairs. Nothing bad happened. So that was that. Then we get to Sunday. And Sunday, like I said, I went a little late because they were supposedly going to screen this movie. That's not a type of movie that I watch, but it was a very interesting movie. And the movie's called Loving. And it's basically the story of one of the first couples who basically went to court to be able to have an, you know, interracial marriage. And it turned out that the first couple happened to be a white man and a black woman in the South. And a lot of y'all don't know, but interracial marriage used to be illegal. So there you go. That's what this movie was about, trying to get a law changed. So I missed that. And then there was a young lady who talked about the idea about thinking small and how to create this big presence in 30 minutes. And she was actually pretty good. And she talked a lot about the live streaming and live blogging. A lot of people were talking about Facebook Live, and for whatever reason, I just don't want to do it. I've never seen Periscope. Actually, I don't even have Flash on my computer, so I couldn't do it. But I liked her presentation. I'm trying to think of the next one I saw. Jeez. Oh, Smarter Reporting. This lady, Davie Sutton, who used to work for ESPN, and she's also worked for some news outlets. And so she was also talking about live blogging and all that kind of stuff, or live streaming. But she was, showing different kinds of equipment or whatever. She was really nice. And then there was this young lady named Kari Renee, who, her and her sister, basically, they came up with a niche where they're both kind of model bodies. And so they take pictures of themselves, but they only wear either black clothes or white clothes. And that has helped them to get people to reach out to them. So they do a lot more work as image consultants and modeling rather than the blogging. But the blog is what got them noticed. And that was an interesting thing. I'd never really thought along that line before. So, they're visually putting these things out there and getting people to see it, so that it got them this other thing. And you know what? That's about all I remember, really. Because Yasmin wanted to leave early. She'd gotten everything she wanted. I had to get back to the airport, even though my flight wasn't leaving, at least when I thought it was going to leave, at about 20 minutes to 11. My flight actually ended up leaving closer to 11:30. So I didn't get home until like 12:30 in the morning, where I then couldn't find my car for a while. And it's not a big airport. I just couldn't find the car. Stupid. Just absolutely stupid. But, like I said, overall, it was a good time. There's some things that I would probably change if I was running it. I think probably anyone who has done certain things would think, okay, I could change some things here. But let me tell you, it's hard putting together anything this big. I mean, I've never tried to put anything this big together. I used to have trouble getting 10 people to come to a meeting when I had speakers coming from out of town. So I know these kinds of things can be difficult. But I'm going to say that, if you have an idea, something that you like, if you have a chance to go to a convention, even if it turns out not to be specifically what you're thinking it is, you may pick up some tips, because this didn't turn out to be what I was thinking it was going to be. But I did pick up a couple of things. Yasmin picked up a bunch. So, Yasmin's going to be killing it. Me? I don't know. Anyhow, this is long, and so I'm going to end it here. Probably, it's not going to end up being super, 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 super popular because of how long it is. But I'm going to tie this into the blog post. Maybe the blog post to get some people to watch. Anyway, I'm Mitch Mitchell, which I haven't said in a long time, so I'm just letting you know. And this is going to be about the Blogging While Brown Conference weekend. There you go. Y'all take care.